Good Friday afternoon, no, morning. Good Friday morning to everybody. How are you? The Chattering Magpie here with you to read some Jane Eyre. Wow. So, the week has just flown by, you guys. It's insane. One day it was Monday, and then suddenly it's Friday, and I don't know whether to rejoice because weekends, of course. But also, Fridays and Saturdays are just one of the busiest days for me. So, but I am, here so happy to be able to read Jane Eyre. We got some really interesting chapters up ahead, and but above all, I get to read it with you guys, the Early Gang. Hello, all of you bookworms who join me for Jane Eyre read-alongs. So happy to 33. The last time we read, Jane was telling us about how she was settling in her new life, and oh, hello, Kihana. It's just popped in to say hi again, Magpie. Hello. I was gonna go through Early Gang, but I'm just pausing just because I know you're popping in. You're about to go to sleep, I bet. But thank you for joining in. Happy to see you here, even if it's just for a hello. And again, also, good night, sweet dreams, darling. And also might as well just say hello to everybody here by name. Hello to little purple butterfly. Hello, darling. Crusher says, I have another meme for you. Yes, I saw it. Thank you for putting it under, tagging it as a spoiler. I look forward to sharing it with peeps once we finish this chapter. So yeah. So what was I saying? So TLDR, real brief about what happened in the last session. We got Jane describing her new life in her new little school. Her students are very plain girls, farmers' kids. But she finds some fulfillment in educating them. And she also tells us about Sinjin. Actually, that was the most interesting thing, is about Sinjin and, Sinjin and Rosamond. Rosamond, she is the daughter of the town's richest man. She's beautiful, rich, young. She's in love with, really besotted with Sinjin. What's not to love, right? Yet Sinjin is being like a very stubborn man and saying, no, I won't marry her. We're like, okay, fine, whatever. Because honestly, Rosamond deserves better than Sinjin. She deserves somebody who will not be cold and who will not look upon her as like the reason why his life is so unfulfilled. Because all he wants really is to do something ambitious, to do something of great renown, to do something, heroic. To that end, he's aiming to become a missionary in India or somewhere else. Meanwhile, Jane is just looking on at this show and giving us her commentary on it. She seems to be the one that's really telling him, like, hey, you love the girl, just take her as your wife. Come on, dude. No doubt, because she has had herself a love that went unfulfilled. So she must be like, if there's people who are like love each other, they should get married. Because there's a bunch of us, myself included, who, even though they loved a lot, it was impossible. So I think that's why she's like pushing him towards Rosamond. But honestly, I think Rosamond is better off without Sinjin. She'll be disappointed, but yeah. Little Butterfly says, when I got up this morning, I thought it was Saturday. Thankfully, my brother told me the day. Oh, wow. Yeah. Actually, it used to be that I used to like to like wake up and realize that it was the weekend. But nowadays I'm just like, oh no, it's the weekend. Like, it's gonna go by so quickly. So yeah, I like Fridays. I really like Fridays. You know how the Cure has the song Friday I'm in love with you. I love that song because it's so true. Just the expectancy of a weekend on Fridays. It's what makes it so cool, I guess. But yeah, it's only Friday. You still have the entire weekend ahead of you after today. Akihana says, funny thing, I know you're saying Rosamond, yet I keep hearing Rosamine. No, this is a different book. Totally different book. Though I don't blame you, and I may have had a slip of the tongue at some point in the previous read-along, so I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. So, there's a few of us here, and I do believe it is good time to start reading Jane Eyre. Yeah, let's get this all started, you guys. We're going to read Jane Eyre, chapter 33. When Mr. St. John went, it was beginning to snow. The whirling storm continued all night. The next day, a keen wind brought fresh and blinding falls. By twilight, the valley was drifted up and almost impassable. I had closed my shutter, laid a mat to the door to prevent the snow from blowing in under it, trimmed my fire, and after sitting nearly an hour on the hearth listening to the muffled fury of the tempest, I lit a candle, took down Marmion, and beginning, day set on Norham's castle steep, and Tweed's fair river broad and deep, and Cheviot's mountains lone, the massive towers the donjon keep, the flanking walls that round them sweep. In yellow lustre shone, I soon forgot storm in music. But I heard a noise. The wind, I thought, shook the door. No, it was St. John Rivers, who, lifting the hatch, came in out of the frozen hurricane, the howling darkness, and stood before me. The cloak that covered his tall figure, all white as a glazier. I was almost in consternation, so little had I expected any guest from the blocked-up vale that night. Yo, St. John, knock! Knock on the door, dude! Anyway, I guess because it's a storm, you could be excused, but still. What are you doing here? There's a storm out there. Jane is certainly like, what the heck? This is surprising. No wonder she's going to be alarmed. Any ill news? I demanded. Has anything happened? No. How very easily alarmed you are, he answered, removing his cloak and hanging it up against the door, towards which he again coolly pushed the mat with which his entrance had arranged. He stamped the snow from his boots. I shall sully the purity of your floor, said he, but you must excuse me for once. Then he approached the fire. I have had hard work to get here, I assure you, he observed as he warmed his hands over the flame. One drift took me up to the waist. Happily the snow is quite soft yet. But why are you come? I could not forbear saying. Rather an inhospitable question to put a visitor, but since you ask it, I answer simply to have a little talk with you. I got tired of my mute books and empty rooms. Besides, since yesterday, I have experienced the excitement of a person to whom a tale has been half told, and who is impatient to hear the sequel. He sat down. I recalled his singular conduct of yesterday, and really I began to fear his wits were touched. If he were insane, however, his was a very cool and collected insanity. I had never seen that handsome-featured face of his look more like chiseled marble than it did just now, as he put aside his snow-wet hair from his forehead and let the firelight shine free on his pale brow and cheek as pale, where it grieved me to discover the hollow trace of care or sorrow now so plainly graved. I waited, expecting he would say something I could at least comprehend, but his hand was now at his chin, his finger on his lip. He was thinking. It struck me that his hand looked wasted like his face. Perhaps perhaps uncalled for gush of pity came over my heart. I was moved to say, I wish Diana or Mary would come and live with you. It is too bad that you should be quite alone, and you're recklessly harsh about your own health. Not at all, said he. I care for myself when necessary. I am well now. What do you see amiss in me? This was said in a careless, abstracted indifference, which showed that my solicitude was, at least in his opinion, wholly superfluous. I was silenced. He still slowly moved his finger over his upper lip, and his eye dwelt dreamily on in the glowing grate. Thinking it urgent to say something, I asked him presently if he felt any cold draught from from the door which was behind him. No, no, he responded shortly and somewhat testily. Well, I reflected, if you won't talk, you may be still. I'll let you alone now and return to my book. So I snuffed the candle and resumed the perusal of Marmion. He soon stirred. My eye was instantly drawn to his movements. He only took out a morocco pocketbook, thence produced a letter, which he read in silence, folded it, put it back, relapsed into meditation. It was vain to try to read with such an inscrutable fixture before me, nor could I, in impatience, consent to be dumb. He might rebuff me if he liked, but talk I would. Have you heard from Diana and Mary lately? Not since the letter I showed you a week ago. There has not been any change made about your own arrangements? You will not be summoned to leave England sooner than you expected? I fear not, indeed. Such chance is too good to befall me. Baffled so far, I changed my ground. I bethought myself to talk about the school and my scholars. Mary Garrett's mother is better, and Mary came back to the school this morning, and I shall have 4 new girls next week from the foundry close. They would have come today but for the snow. Indeed. Mr. Oliver pays for 2. Does he? He means to give the whole school a treat at Christmas. I know. Was it your suggestion? No. Whose then? His daughter's, I think. It is like her. She is so good-natured. Yes. Again came the blank of a pause. The clock struck 8 notes. It aroused him. He uncrossed his legs, sat erect, and turned to me. Leave your book a moment, and come a little nearer the fire, he said. Wondering, and of my wonder finding no end, I complied. Half an hour ago, he pursued, I spoke of my impatience to hear the sequel of a tale. On reflection, I find the matter will be better managed by my assuming the narrator's part, and converting you into a listener. Before commencing, it is but fair to warn you that the story will sound somewhat hackneyed in your ears, but stale details often regain a degree of freshness when they pass through new lips. For the rest, whether trite or novel, it is short. 20 years ago, a poor curate, never mind his name at the moment, fell in love with a rich man's daughter. She fell in love with him, and married him against the advice of all her friends, who consequently disowned her immediately after the wedding. Before 2 years passed, the rash pair were both dead, and laid quietly side by side under one slab. I have seen their grave. It formed part of the pavement of a huge churchyard surrounding the grim, soot-black old cathedral of an overgrown manufacturing town in Blankshire. They left a daughter which, at its very birth, Charity received in her lap. Cold as that of the snowdrift I almost stuck fast in tonight. Charity carried the friendless thing to the house of its rich maternal relations. It was reared by an aunt-in-law, called, I come to names now, Mrs. Reed of Gateshead. You start. Did you hear a noise? I dare say it is only a rat scrambling along the rafters of the adjoining schoolroom. It was a barn before I had it repaired and altered, and barns are generally haunted by rats. To proceed. Mrs. Reed kept the orphan 10 years. Whether I was happy or not with her, I cannot say, never having been told. But at the end of that time, she transferred it to a place you know, being no other than Lowood School, where you so long resided yourself. It seems her career, though, was very honorable. From a pupil, she became a teacher, like yourself. Really, it strikes me there are parallel points in her history and yours. She left it to be a governess. There again, your fates were analogous. She undertook the education of the ward of a certain Mr. Rochester. Mr. Rivers! I can guess your feelings, but restrain them for a while. I have nearly finished. Hear me to the end. Of Mr. Rochester's character I know nothing, but the one fact that he professed to offer honorable marriage to this young girl, and that at the very altar she discovered he had a wife yet alive, though a lunatic. What his subsequent conduct and proposals were is a matter of pure conjecture. But when an event transpired which rendered inquiry after the governess necessary, it was discovered she was gone. No one could tell when, where, or how. She had left Thornfield Hall in the night. Every research after her course had been in vain. The country had been scoured far and wide. No vestige of information could be gathered respecting her. Yet that she should be found has become a matter of serious urgency. Advertisements have been put in all the papers. I myself have received a letter from one Mr. Briggs, a solicitor, communicating the details I have just imparted. Is it not an odd tale? Just tell me this. Since you know so much, you surely can tell me. What of Mr. Rochester? How and where is he? What is he doing? Is he well? I'm ignorant of all concerning Mr. Rochester. The letter never mentions him but to narrate the fraudulent and illegal attempt I have adverted to. You should rather ask the name of the governess, the nature of the event which requires her appearance. Did no one go to Thornfield Hall, then? Did no one see Mr. Rochester? I suppose not. But they wrote to him. Of course. And what did he say? Who has his letters? Mr. Briggs intimates that he had no answer to his application. No, that the answer to his application was not from Mr. Rochester, but from a lady. It is signed Alice Fairfax. I felt cold and dismayed. My worst fears were probably true. He had in all probability left England and rushed in reckless desperation to some former haunt of the continent. And what opiate for his severe sufferings? What object for his strong passions had he sought there? I dare not answer the question. Oh, my poor master, once almost my husband, whom I had often called my dear Edward. He must have been a bad man, observed Mr. Rivers. You don't know him. Don't pronounce an opinion upon him, I said with warmth. Very well, he answered quietly. And indeed, my head is otherwise occupied than with him. I have my tale to finish. Since you won't ask the governess's name, I must tell it of my own accord. Stay, I have it here. It is always more satisfactory to see important points written down, fairly committed to black and white. Again, the pocketbook was again deliberately produced, opened, sought through. From one of its compartments was extracted a shabby slip of paper, hastily torn off. I recognized in its texture and its stains of ultramarine and lake and vermilion the ravished margin of the portrait cover. He got up, held it close to my eyes, and I read, traced in Indian ink, in my own handwriting, the words Jane Eyre. The work, doubtless, of some moment of abstraction. Briggs wrote to me of a Jane Eyre, he said. The advertisements demanded a Jane Eyre. I knew a Jane Elliot. I confess I had my own suspicions, but it was only yesterday afternoon that they were at once resolved into certainty. You own the name and denounce the alias? Yes, but where's Mr. Briggs? He perhaps knows more of Mr. Rochester than you do. Briggs is in London. I should doubt his knowing anything at all about Mr. Rochester. It is not in Mr. Rochester he was interested. Meantime, you forget essential points in pursuing trifles. You do not inquire why Mr. Briggs sought after you, what he wanted with you. Well, What did he want? Merely to tell you that your uncle, Mr. Eyre of Madeira, is dead, that he has left you all his property, and that you are now rich. Merely that. Nothing more. I? Rich? Yes, you, rich. Quite an heiress. Silence succeeded. You must prove your identity, of course, resumed St. John presently, a step which will offer no difficulties. You can then enter on immediate possession. Your fortune is vested in the English funds. Briggs has the will and the necessary documents. Here was a new card turned up. It is a fine thing, reader, to be lifted in a moment from indigence to wealth. A very fine thing, but not a matter one can comprehend or consequently enjoy all at once. And then there are other chances in life far more thrilling and rapture-giving. This is solid, an affair of the actual world, nothing ideal about it. All its associations are solid and sober, and its manifestations are the same. One does not jump and spring and shout hurrah at hearing one has got a fortune. One begins to consider responsibilities and ponder business. On a base of steady satisfaction rise certain grave cares, and we contain ourselves and brood over our bliss with a solemn brow. Besides, the words legacy, bequest, go side by side with the words death, funeral. My uncle, I had heard, was dead, my only relative. Ever since being made aware of his existence, I had cherished the hope of one day seeing him. Now I never should. And then this money came only to me, not to me and the rejoicing family, but to my isolated self. It was a grand boon, doubtless, and independence would be glorious. Yes, I felt that. That thought swelled my heart. You unbent your forehead at last, said Mr. Rivers. I thought Medusa had looked at you, and you were turning into stone. Perhaps now you will ask how much you are worth. How much am I worth? Oh, a trifle. Nothing, of course, to speak of. 20,000 pounds, I think they say. But what is that? 20,000 pounds! Here was a new stunner. I have been calculating on 4 or 5,000. This news actually took my breath for a moment. Mr. St. John, whom I had never heard laugh before, laughed now. Well, said he, if you had committed a murder and I had told you your crime was discovered, you could scarcely look more aghast. It is a large sum. Don't you think there's a mistake? No, no mistake at all. Perhaps you have read the figures wrong. It may be 2,000. It is written in letters, not figures. 20,000. I again felt rather like an individual of but average gastronomical powers sitting down to feast alone at a table spread with provisions for 100. Mr. Rivers rose now and put his cloak on. If it were not such a very wild night, he said, I would send Hannah down to keep you company. You look too desperately miserable to be left alone, but Hannah, poor woman, could not strive the drift so well as I. Her legs are not quite so long. So I must even leave you to your sorrows. Good night. He was lifting the latch. A sudden thought occurred to me. Stop 1 minute, I cried. Well, this is hidden. Well, it puzzles me to know why Mr. Briggs wrote to you about me, or how he knew you, or could fancy that you, living in such an out-of-the-way place, had the power to aid in my discovery. Oh, I'm a clergyman, and the clergy are often appealed to about odd matters. Again the latch rattled. No, that does not satisfy me, I exclaimed, and indeed there was something in the hasty and unexplanatory reply which, instead of allaying, piqued my curiosity more than ever. It is a very strange piece of business, I added. I must know more about it. Another time. No, tonight! Tonight! And as he turned from the door, I placed myself between it and him. He looked rather embarrassed. You shall certainly not go till you have told me all. I would rather not just now. You shall? You must. I would rather Diana or Mary informed you. Of course, these objections wrought my eagerness to a climax. Gratified I must be, and that without delay. And I told him so. "But I praised you. I was a hard man," said he, "difficult to persuade." "And I am a hard woman, impossible to put off." "And then I am cold. No fervor infects me." "Whereas I am hot, and fire dissolves ice. The blaze there has thawed all the snow from your cloak. By the same token, it has streamed onto my floor and made it like a trampled street. As you hope ever to be forgiven, Mr. Rivers, the high crime and misdemeanor of spoiling a sanded kitchen, tell me what I wish to know." "Well, then," he said, "I yield. If not to your earnestness, to your perseverance. A stone is worn by continual dropping. Besides, you must know some day, as well now as later. Your name is Jane Eyre." "Of course, that was all settled before." "You are not perhaps aware that I am your namesake. I was christened St. John Eyre Rivers." "No, indeed. I remember now seeing the letter E, comprising your initials written in books you had at different times lent me, but I never asked for what name it stood. But what, then? Surely—" I stopped. I could not trust myself to entertain, much less to express, the thought that rushed upon me, that embodied itself, that, in a second, stood out a strong, solid probability. Circumstances knit themselves, fitted themselves, shot into order. The chain that had been lying hitherto, a formless lump of links, was drawn out straight. Every ring was perfect, the connection complete. I knew by instinct how the matter stood, before St. John had said another word. But I cannot expect the reader to have the same intuitive perception, so I must repeat his explanation. My mother's name was Eyre. She had 2 brothers, one a clergyman, who married Miss Jane Reed of Gateshead, the other John Eyre, Esquire, merchant, late of Funchal, Madeira. Mr. Briggs, being Mr. Eyre's solicitor, wrote to us last August to inform us of our uncle's death, and to say that he had left his property to his brother, the clergyman's orphan's daughter, overlooking us in consequence of a quarrel, never forgiven, between him and my father. He wrote again a few weeks since, to intimate that the heiress was lost, and asking if we knew anything of her. A name casually written on a slip of paper has enabled me to find her out. You know the rest." Again he was going, but I set my back against the door. "Do let me speak. Let me have one moment to draw breath and reflect." I paused. He stood before me, hat in hand, looking composed enough. I resumed. "Your mother was my father's sister?" "Yes." "My aunt, consequently." He bowed. "My Uncle John was your Uncle John. You, Diana, and Mary are his sister's children, as I am his brother's child." "Undeniably." "You 3, then, are my cousins. Half our blood on each side flows from the same source?" "We are cousins, yes." I surveyed him. It seemed I had found a brother, one I could be proud of, one I could love, and 2 sisters whose qualities were such that, when I knew them but as mere strangers, they had inspired me with genuine affection and admiration. The 2 girls on whom, kneeling down on the wet ground and looking through the low latticed window of Moor House kitchen, I had gazed with so bitter a mixture of interest and despair, were my near kinswomen, and the young and stately gentleman who had found me almost dying at his threshold was my blood relation. Glorious discovery to a lonely wretch! This was wealth indeed, wealth to the heart, a mine of pure, genial affections. This was a blessing, bright, vivid, and exalting, not like the ponderous gift of gold, rich and welcome enough in its way, but sobering from its weight. I now clapped my hands in sudden joy. My pulse bounded, my veins thrilled. "Oh, I am glad! I am glad!" I exclaimed. St. John smiled. "Did I not say you neglected essential points to pursue trifles? You were serious when I told you you had got a fortune, and now, for a matter of no moment, you are excited." "What can you mean? It may be of no moment to you. You have sisters and don't care for a cousin. But I had nobody, and now 3 relations, or two if you don't choose to be counted, are born into my world, full grown. I say again, I am glad. I walked fast through the room. I stopped, half suffocated with the thoughts that rose faster than I could receive, comprehend, settle them. Thoughts of what might, could, would, and should be, and that ere long. I looked at the blank wall. It seemed a sky thick with ascending stars, every one lit to me a purpose or delight. Those who had saved my life, whom till this hour I had loved barrenly, I could now benefit. They were under a yoke. I could free them. They were scattered. I could reunite them. The independence, the affluence which was mine, might be theirs too. Were we not four? 20,000 pounds shared equally would be 5,000 each. Justice enough and to spare. Justice would be done, mutual happiness secured. Now the wealth did not weigh on me. Now it was not a mere bequest of coin. It was a legacy of life, hope, enjoyment. How I looked while these ideas were taking my spirit by storm, I cannot tell. But I perceived soon that Mr. Rivers had placed a chair behind me and was gently attempting to make me sit down on it. He also advised me to be composed. I scorned the insinuation of helplessness and distraction, shook off his hand, and began to walk about again. Write to Diana and Mary tomorrow, and tell them to come home directly. Diana said they would both consider themselves rich with 1,000 pounds, so with 5,000 they will do very well. Tell me where I can get you a glass of water, said St. John. You must really make an effort to tranquilize your feelings. Nonsense! And what sort of an effect will the bequest have on you? Will it keep you in England, induce you to marry Miss Oliver and settle down like an ordinary mortal? You wonder. Your head becomes confused. I have been too abrupt in communicating the news. It has excited you beyond your strength. Mr. Rivers, you quite put me out of patience. I am rational enough. It is you who misunderstand, or rather who affects to misunderstand. Water break. Perhaps if you explained yourself a little more fully, I should comprehend better. Explain? What is there to explain? You cannot fail to see that 20,000 pounds, the sum in question, divided equally between the nephew and 3 nieces of our uncle, will give 5,000 to each. What I want is that you should write to your sisters and tell them of the fortune that has accrued to them. To you, you mean? I have intimated my view of the case. I am incapable of taking any other. I am not brutally selfish, blindly unjust, or fiendishly ungrateful. Besides, I am resolved I will have a home and connections. I like Moor House, and I will live at Moor House. I like Diana and Mary, and I will attach myself for life to Diana and Mary. It would please and benefit me to have 5,000 pounds. It would torment and oppress me to have 20,000, which moreover could never be mine in justice, though it might in law. I abandon to you, then, what is absolutely superfluous to me. Let there be no opposition and no discussion about it. Let us agree amongst each other and decide the point at once. This is acting on first impulses. You must take days to consider such a matter, or your word can be regarded as valid. Ah, if all you doubt is my sincerity, I am easy. You see the justice of the case. I do see a certain justice, but it is contrary to all custom. Besides, the entire fortune is your right. My uncle gained it by his own efforts. He was free to leave it to whom he would. He left it to you. After all, justice permits you to keep it. You may, with a clear conscience, consider it absolutely your own. With me, said I, it is fully as much a matter of feeling and of conscience. I must indulge my feelings. I so seldom have had an opportunity to do so. Were you to argue, object, and annoy me for a year, I could not forego the delicious pleasure of which I have caught a glimpse, that of repaying, in part, a mighty obligation, and winning to myself lifelong friends. You think so now, rejoined St. John, because you do not know what it is like to possess, nor consequently to enjoy wealth. You cannot form a notion of the importance 20,000 pounds would give you, of the place it would enable you to take in society, of the prospects it would open to you. You cannot, and you, I interrupted, cannot at all imagine the craving I have for fraternal and sisterly love. I never had a home. I never had brothers or sisters. I must and will have them now. You're not reluctant to admit me now, and no, you're not reluctant to admit me and own me, are you? Jane, I will be your brother. My sisters will be your sisters, without stipulating for the sacrifice of your just rights. Brother? Yes, at the distance of 1,000 leagues. Sisters? Yes, slaving among strangers. I, wealthy, gorged with gold I never earned and do not merit. You penniless. Famous equality and fraternization, close union, intimate attachment. But Jane, your aspirations after family ties and domestic happiness may be realized otherwise than by the means you contemplate. You may marry. Nonsense again. Marry? I don't want to marry, and never shall marry. That is saying too much. Such hazardous affirmations are a proof of the excitement under which you labor. It is not saying too much. I know what I feel, and how averse are my inclinations to the bare thought of marriage. No one would take me for love, and I will not be regarded in the light of a mere money speculation. And I do not want a stranger, unsympathizing, alien, different from me. I want my kindred, those with whom I have full fellow feeling. Say again you will be my brother. When you uttered the words, I was satisfied and happy. Repeat them if you can. Repeat them sincerely. I think I can. I know I have always loved my own sisters, and I know on what my affection for them is grounded. Respect for their worth and admiration of their talents. You two have principle and mind. Your tastes and habits resemble Diana's and Mary's. Your presence is always agreeable to me. In your conversation I have already, for some time, found a salutary solace. I feel I can easily and naturally make room in my heart for you, as my third and youngest sister. Thank you. That contents me for tonight. Now you had better go, for if you stay longer you will perhaps irritate me afresh by some mistrustful scruple. And the school, Miss Eyre, it must now be shut up, I suppose? No. I will retain my post of mistress till you get a substitute. He smiled approbation. We shook hands, and he took leave. I need not narrate in detail the further struggles I had and arguments I used to get matters regarding the legacy settled as I wish. My task was a very hard one, but as I was absolutely resolved, as my cousin saw at length that my mind was really and immutably fixed on making a just division of the property, as they must in their own hearts have felt the equity of the intention, and must besides have been innately conscious that in my place they would have done precisely what I wished to do, they yielded at length so far as to consent to put the affair to arbitration. The judges chosen were Mr. Oliver and an able lawyer. Both coincided in my opinion. I carried my point. The instruments of transfer were drawn out. St. John, Diana, Mary, and I each became possessed of a competency. End of chapter. So, we got Jane, the heiress. So, yes, Akihana, you were always right all along. You were right all along. You called it. Yes, but I was not about to spoil it for you. Good on you. Have an award with my love. Let's see. Search emoji trophy. Here we go. Have an award with my love for Akihana. For figuring it all out. No, it's not the end of the story. So okay, let's see. I see some people are angry. Let's see. Hold on a second. So again, we have Red Tempest joined in. Hello, hello. Happy to see you. We have Little Butterflies who's just walking in, no thought of her reputation. Right, she just St. John just walking into her house just like that. Again, yes, like okay, guys, a lady and a single lady and a single bachelor, single lady, a bachelor and a woman and a fine. An unmarried man and an unmarried woman did not just go like into each other's houses just like that. There had to be a chaperone, and there's no chaperone. Okay, so come on. I guess I don't know. St. John is pissing me off because he doesn't like to knock on the door and do things properly. Yeah. Anyway, happy that you joined us, Red Tempest. And also Noodles Dumplings Kimchi says late but better than never. I'm glad you're here. Hello, Bookworm. Yes, so he figured out the story. We now know, remember in the last read along, he saw something in one of the papers that she had, like a scrap piece of paper. He saw something in it. He tore a strip of it and he looked very mysterious as he did. And now we know, like the next day he returned telling her like all about it. Yeah, it wasn't an actual picture or a piece of no, it was just a scrap piece of paper with her name. She had, I guess didn't realize that she wrote her real name, just scrawled it on the paper. Anyway, but I really liked how Jane compares himself, like she draws herself as his foil, because he's like, I am cold and hard, and she's like, well, I am fire, and yeah, you are going to do what I want right now. So in a way they get along well because they complement each other in some ways, and it now turns out that it's a good thing too because they're also related. So I'm so happy for Jane, you guys. I don't care if she has a St. John as a cousin. I would rather whatever. I'm not a fan of St. John, but I am so happy that she now has she was really attached to Diana and Mary. So it's so good to know that she now has family. Remember, up until this point, she did have family. She does have family, but it was Eliza and Georgiana. Now, talk about a contrast, you guys. In Eliza and Georgiana, she had one of them was cold and miserly and absolutely like merciless, and just the other one was vain, conceited, helpless. And now you have Diana and Mary. They're both intelligent, they're both industrious, they're both warm and affectionate, they're generous. They don't have money, but what little they have, they give freely and for others. So, I don't know, I just love how during this whole book, you'll find like so many instances of like just comparisons, and how, like, for example, settings will like have symbolisms. I don't know, it's just a really fun book to analyze. I'm really bad at a literary analysis, but I like figuring out some little details here and there. So what do you guys think is going to happen now? So let's see. Jane received the news of her inheritance with rather like shock. She almost looked like she was distraught, and she was distraught because she was like, I had hoped to meet my uncle. Like she had clung on to the knowledge that she had family somewhere in the world, and now that only family was dead. But in exchange, even though she never got to see her uncle did benefit her in many ways. First, he sent Briggs to stop her marriage with Rochester. Not only that, he also left her 20,000 pounds, you guys. That's like as much of a fortune as Rochester's family had. So Rochester, for example, his family was like had 20,000 pounds. Then he married Bertha Mason, where he got her dowry of 30,000 pounds. So I mean, he's super rich. But as it was, 20,000 pounds is like a lot of money, you guys, like a lot. I wonder how much it is in today's money. Let me see. Jane Eyre, no, 20,000 pounds. Okay, so Quora says, well, there's two answers actually. So some people say approximately 2.42 pounds. No, 2.42 million pounds. Sorry. Or in American money, some other people are saying 3 million pounds. Interesting. Still a lot. Let's see. Let me see a little bit more. I don't know. It's a lot though. It's in the millions, you guys. Imagine you received millions of dollars. At least $2 million. It's a lot of money. Maybe upwards more than $3 million. Like I see like upwards 3.42 million pounds here. Let me see. Here we go. Let me hold on a second. Yeah, so it was a lot of money. At very least $2 million. At the very least. So she received news that she got $2 million. Not to say 3 million to make us feel better. $2 or $3 million, and she was shocked, almost appalled, not because of the money, which, you know, gave her freedom, and she was like, okay, that's pretty cool, like knowing that I will be free to do my life whatever I want. That's pretty cool. But the thought that her uncle had died, that tempered any kind of delight that she had. However, St. John was like, well, I'm just gonna leave you here with this news. He just dumped the news and wanted to get out of there. Yeah, no, Jane was like, okay, how is it that you know about this anyway? And she finally managed to weasel it out of him by some means or another. He's the cousin. They're like really related. They're like first cousins, you guys. So they're very, very, very close. So I'm so happy that that she found her family. Just like Little Butterfly says, family is worth more than money. Well, sometimes there's yeah, it is worth more than money. If I don't know, man, you guys, honestly, you guys, sometimes it's better to have distance between family. I'm just speaking from a person who has had some family drama and is now better off distance from family. But if you have a family where you can lean on each other for support, where it's not about drama and toxicity and all those things, then yes, family is definitely priceless. That is why it's lovely to have a family or friendship that is so close that it's like almost like a found family. But in this case, this found family became real family. How lovely was that? Noodles Dumplings Kimchi keeps being angry at Sinjin. Says, what is this guy's game? The way he's talking is shady. Right? Well, in all fairness, he doesn't want Jane to make a he doesn't want her to make an impulsive decision. And also, especially so because it would be wrong of him to like say, oh cool, yeah, I'll take your money. It's just, it would be, so he really has to try to like talk her down. So because he does stand to benefit from it, like if he does agree to her plan, she loses most of her money. She retains with only 1/4, whereas his family retained the 3/4. Now, it is though justice, even if it is kind of like good though that they keep some of the money, because remember, if you guys will remember, Jane's uncle John, who left off for Madeira, had previously tried to do like another business venture, and he lost the money that the Rivers kids' father had. So the Rivers family used to have more money, but they lost a whole bunch of their wealth to because of this failed business venture. There was a fight, and Uncle John left, and he didn't leave them any money as restitution. So in a way, it is good, and it's fair that they receive some of the money. Here's a question that Noodles Dumplings Kimchi poses: is wait, Mary, because he said like, she's like, I want a family, like I don't care about money, I've always wanted a family and to attach myself to another, like, and be happy with them. And he's like, well, you could marry, you don't have to give up your wealth. If you marry somebody, you will have this domestic delight of having your family. And she's like, no, I don't want to marry. Noodles Dumplings Kimchi says, wait, Mary, does he want to marry her and take all the inheritance and screw over his sisters? Do you think that's he's as bad as that? Like, I know he's an irritating a-hole, but I don't think he would do that. So I don't think he would do that. Let's see. Let me check how long is the next chapter and see if I read it. Let's see. It is a little long, you guys, so I'm gonna have to stop here and pick it up next week, as it is 1, 2, 3, 4. We have around 4 sessions left, so I'm gonna leave it because it is a little longer than what I just read today. And if I kept you around with the hope that I might read a second chapter, I'm so sorry. I do have another activity planned on my Discord. If you are a Ko-fi member, today we are reading we're reading A Sense of a Bookworm. We are doing part 5, volume 10. So do join in if you're free. It'll be at noon. So I'm gonna stop here to finish out some stuff so I can do that. Remember, you guys, if you want to support your magpie, please do so. You can do so at my Ko-fi. I have posts, I have things you can find, read-alongs to do. I have stuff going on. So yeah, you can become a member and get several perks and of course all my love, all my gratitude for your support. There's also other goodies I have here, so be sure to support me if you're able to. I know sometimes though it's hard to support because money and sometimes we have college students, and I was a college student myself at some point, so yeah, I get it. So if you can't support me monetarily, you can support me by just sharing this video or whatever, liking, commenting, subscribing, engaging with this video. It just makes everything cool, and it will increase my watch hours so that eventually when I finally hit 1,000 subscribers, oh my gosh, I'm about a tenth of the way. When I finally reach 1,000 subscribers, if I ever reach 1,000 subscribers, we will be able to monetize. All right. So, meme. Thank you, Crusher, for putting it up for spoilers. St. John piecing together Jane's past. Right? I love it. Oh my goodness. You're getting better and better at the AI thingy, whatever it's called. The software that makes this possible. So yeah, you guys, let's see what else we have in the chat. Where's the chat? Where did the chat go? Oh, my chat. Oh, here's my chat. Let's see. Noodles Dumplings Kimchi says, Red Tempest, sorry, but that guy doesn't give me much hope. My expectations of him are in the depths of hell. Noodles Dumplings Kimchi, are your expectations of him greater or lesser than Rochester? Just wondering. Noodles Dumplings Kimchi says, I love that there's a lot of women appreciating women. Yes, women supporting women, especially in this time. You had to have a family of like connecting each other. It's always good to like help each other out, help a sister out. A lot of times, this is something I have found. It's a lot of times we tend to be like envious or whatever of like each other, and we don't support each other. And so I think that we should do more of this, of supporting each other, boosting each other up. So happy to see it here. Yes, Noodle Something's Kimchi, she is a millionaire. Akihana says, was her inheritance a lump sum of £20,000, or does she still get an annual income from her late uncle's business venture? So I think they might have, I don't know how this goes. He said it was in the, let me see, in the British funds. So I think it might just be like it's in the investments, and then she will get like monthly or yearly income from that. I think that's how it works. I think he said it's in the English funds. Hold on. English funds. Your fortune is vested in the English funds. Let's look up what the English funds are. What are the English funds? I have no idea what this is. I think I found the website here. Let's see what it says. When Jane Eyre inherits £20,000 and then immediately decides to share that inheritance evenly with her cousins, her newfound wealth resolves a previous generation's family with conflicts and affords Jane independence. This transaction also allows her to bypass a number of 19th century restrictions on women's property rights, and suggests an alternative to popular endings of Plain Jane's Progress. So apparently there would have been other limits. You know what? Now that I think about it, it probably must have been like, if it exceeds this amount of money, she needs a man to help her, manage her stuff. I bet that's it. By exploring this, oh, it's a paper. Jane transforms a patriarchal inheritance into a means of establishing and sustaining kinship outside of conventional marriage and closer than bloodlines of common law would otherwise dictate. This is good stuff. I will give it a read. I will put this in the chat so you guys can read it if you want. I don't think I'll read it here, but do check it out. It might offer some more information. Inheritance is taxed, but we'll see. I think it says that she might have gotten around some restrictions and conventions here, so I don't know what the nature of those things were. Let's see. Welcome back, Red Tempest. Yes, so Noodles Dumplings Kimchi agrees with the found family concept. It is nice to pick and choose who you get along with, even amongst family members. There are even people amongst family members that you just feel better without them. Yes, I know, trust me. Noodles Dumplings Kimchi says Rochester is even worse than Sinjin. Yeah, he's yeah, he definitely did Jane dirty. In the name of love, he had justified it to himself that he could do as he wanted selfishly. So unless he apologizes and does something to to make up for his blunder, he will not be in our good graces. I still think Sinjin is better than Rochester, says Akihana, despite him being a Chuninbyo. Oh my gosh. Yes, Crusher. We did love your memes. Thank you very much. Was it only the one meme or was there more memes? I think I only saw one meme, unless there's another one. I do remember the cold and ambitious man. I showed it in the last read along, but I'll show it here again. Sorry for being a cold and ambitious man. Yes. So again, you guys, I will leave you. Thank you again, Crusher, and everybody who makes memes. Really appreciate you. Appreciate you coming to the read along and laughing with me and whatnot. I look forward to the next one on Monday. We still have a few chapters to go, and they're gonna get pretty interesting. Now that Jane has a family, how will that affect, or will it affect, her relationship with them? Will they still see her the same way they saw her before? Well, I guess it's now up to Jane Eyre to tell her story. We'll find out more on, Monday. Thank you again for hanging out with me. I'll see you guys then. Have a wonderful and blessed weekend, you guys. I will see you. Bye-bye.